Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Garrett, a very special Sunday pod here in New York City, right in the thick of where the 500 people thing has affected this state, the city, Broadway. As you know, the Broadway here has been shut down, and social distancing has become a big topic here in New York. And someone that's been covering this from really the beginning, Rick McGuire, founder of SubwayCreatures. Rick, I know that you've been posting a lot about this, so what have you seen as far as this thing, as far as the city's reaction to the subway thing?
One of the first things that comes to mind is, you think about when Sandy hit, you think about 9/11, you think about some of these events that really causes the city to shut down. And I'll be quite honest, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but you do think that it's going to get worse. And when it does, there's going to be more restrictions, which is going to really put the city on lockdown. Um, from my side, it's funny watching because there's a domino effect to all of this, and you see just everything starting to get affected all the way down the ladder. And, even ways by me, I do these pop-up concerts at the subway all the time. And, I've had all the bands canceled, which, isn't even that bad compared to what other people have to deal with. But as far as content goes, I've been really getting a lot of content sent to me based on people wearing funny masks, how people are dealing with this whole situation. So it's been back and forth, but it's an unfortunate situation, and it's just all a matter of how we're gonna have to deal with this.
Well, and as far as your content goes, I mean, you post people's reactions, I guess overreactions, although now I guess you call them overreactions. And what have you really seen, and why have people flung to your page to find out what's going on here in New York?
Well, I'll be quite honest with you. With sports canceled right now, you have a lot of people working from home, a lot of people out of work. They really don't have much to turn to right now other than Netflix, any kind of streaming devices, and social media is playing a huge role in that. So based on that, my page has actually seen a huge wave of activity and new followers, and I think it's just basically because New York City is right in the center of all of this right now. And I
Right?
think people want to see how other people are handling this. And it's not even the Subway Creatures page, it's also the What is New York page. And I think people are kind of using those pages to see what's happening out there. Because a lot of people are really isolating themselves, and if you want to call it quarantining themselves in their apartments right now. And, I think they want to see what's going on out there.
Well, I just got an alert on my phone that De Blasio could consider a lockdown of New York City, and that would harm content, although maybe not. I mean, I don't know what you would shift to if you weren't covering the subway, but if that does happen, what can people expect from you? Being that Subway is your life, what can people expect from you after that?
Yeah, so the good part of that, and you're right, obviously a lockdown, you'd imagine the subway would be one of the first things to kind of get wiped off. I don't know if you can actually shut the subway down completely because that is such a main hub for not only people getting around, but you think about people who have to work, firefighters, police officers, and more importantly, and most importantly, people in the healthcare system. So shutting the subway down completely, I don't see that happening. However, I could see a lot of restrictions. A lot of trains, they're probably canceling a lot of the schedule. However, the good part for me on a content standpoint, I have so much content just saved up because, I've been inundated with videos and photos for a very long time now. There's never going to be a shortage of content. Yeah, it might not be the most recent content, but there's absolutely no shortage on content that I have stored up. So, no matter what, I'll have stuff to post for the time being. And not only that, but I think, you know, no matter what kind of shutdown happens, I think people are always going to find a way to kind of record the craziness that's happening out there, and they'll find a way to submit it as well.
Talking with Rick McGuire. He is the creator of Subway Creatures. It's launched like over the last couple of years, even a few years. Even an advertisement was referencing you, right? I mean, that was pretty cool to see as well.
Actually, I didn't even know about that until you sent me that. I think that was JetBlue, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. Yep, yep.
Yeah, JetBlue mentioned SubwayCreatures, and that was really cool. And that just kind of goes to show you, how far this has come. I mean, it started as a hobby for me, so to be where I am, is really amazing and really awesome. I never really saw it coming, but seeing things like that is kind of a testament to where it is now.
If this city comes on lockdown, I wish we could join our buddy Andres in San Diego. I'm sure it's nice and calm over there right now.
Oh my God, absolutely, yeah.
But you just talk about how far-reaching it is. So I'm sure you've got videos in the can from even out of this country, internationally, right? I mean, people send you stuff from all over the place.
Yeah, and that's a big misconception. People think that it's the account's limited to just New York City. It's really not. New York City is where the majority of the craziness happens. I think when you put 8 million people in a confined space like that, you're bound to get the most content. But it is open to LA, Chicago, Boston, and internationally even. I get stuff from London, the Tube over there, Hong Kong, Mexico City. There's no discriminating where any of this content comes from.
Well, let me just take a look down Times Square right now. There's a few people walking around, but it's not the full kind of thing we're used to. But I would say, Rick, the social distancing aspect of this, I feel like New Yorkers try and practice that every day. I mean, I'm sure you see that when you're traveling around as well. Like that's nothing new to us, right?
It's nothing new to us. And the interesting thing that I think we're seeing right now is, especially when it comes to maybe the nightlife, is that there are certain, it seems like people are doing a good job of, working from home and limiting to where and when they're going out. But I mean, I'll admit, Friday, Saturday night, I was even out, and the bars and restaurants, it's business as usual, and it kind
That's
of makes
great.
you wonder. It's great, but it also makes you wonder, what's going to happen in the next week or two moving forward. What is this going to manifest to? What is it going to look like?
Well, when you do see some aspects where there's nobody really around, it's like, am I the dumb one for traveling around? Like that's kind of how I start to feel. Or am I the smart one for just going about my life? Like you can't tell right now which one it is.
You really can't. And there are a lot of people who are saying, obviously to stay home, quarantine yourself, but then you also have to think about, all right, if you are going to go out, try to feed into the mom and pop businesses, the small businesses, because those people in those businesses, they can't really afford to shut down for a few weeks. I mean, these are people's livelihoods. So, if you are going to go out and spend money, make sure you're doing it at least in an effective way.
I'm talking with Rick McGuire. Now you have your own account as well, aside from Subway Creatures, because you do a podcast. So tell us about that for a minute. Are you gonna cover what the heck's going on in the city on the next one?
I absolutely normally would. The podcast has been kind of off air for the last couple months. We're trying to get that back going. I've been in talks with a couple of podcast studios, in fact. I wish I was up and running right now just so I could cover a lot of this. But regardless, say when that does come back, we're going to have plenty to talk about.
So we've been hearing about we may not get back to normal life, and New York may not be normal for a while. I feel like we're just not used to the normal anyway, right? You see the craziest stuff, but this is a new element. So when you hear that it may not be normal for the next couple months, how do you feel, Rick? And how should the city feel?
I mean, what is normal, really? I know exactly what you mean when you ask that question, but going off of what you said before, what is normal? But I know exactly what you're saying. It's the regular kind of life that we're used to living here in New York. Obviously, it doesn't sound like there's necessarily a light at the end of the tunnel right now, and that the next few weeks, hopefully that's the extent of it. But we don't know yet, so it's very hard to speculate on. But I think it's just really important for people to live their lives, but also do it very cautiously. I'm one of those people at that age where I don't think I necessarily have to worry about the effects of the virus itself. I'm healthy. I'm a young adult, so I don't think it's going to have a really bad effect on me. But it's the people that I affect. It's the people who I surround myself and that I'm around that it's really going to affect. So I think people just need to keep that in the back of their minds as well.
And I know people that will be watching this want to know all about you, Rick. So tell us about yourself really quickly, aside from the account. Tell us about you. I mean, what made you do all this coverage, and tell us about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I grew up in New Jersey, about 15 minutes west of the city, and so I was right here, kind of in the thick of it for my whole life. And in 2011, I was doing the commute, the 9 to 5 commute, working as a television producer, and I was seeing all the crazy things that New York has to offer, and I really wanted to create a platform for where this stuff can exist. So I did that. I started a website, and then Instagram came along. I moved everything over to that platform, and it just really started to snowball. The content was speaking for itself, and before I knew it, it took a few years to get to a point where it was really starting to snowball. But once it did, the snowball got big enough where it was just headed downhill, and it was picking up speed. And again, I mentioned it before. I never pictured it to be an account with 2 million followers where it is now. So I'm really lucky about that. So, um, it's now something I've been able to do as a full-time job, and yeah, it's only growing, and something like this may slow it down, but it'll pick up speed eventually.
Any other aspects that you feel like we should be known about, or any calming message you have for New Yorkers during this time? Because you're in the thick of it too. You're right in the middle of all this stuff daily. So, any calming message you can have for us today as the
Um,
creator of Subway Creatures?
it does, you do need to take a lot with a grain of salt what you hear in the media. So I think it's just important to really listen to the top officials, follow verified accounts where you know that a lot of that information is being factual. Because I got a text message, I believe it was either Thursday or Friday night, saying that the city was going into absolute lockdown. They were going to close off all the bridges and tunnels. um, and when you get stuff like that, obviously your first instinct is to get scared, and but you also need to question the source. Where is this coming from? Remember that I just got this from as a text message coming from a bunch of friends who knew friends who knew friends who knew friends.
Right.
So it's just important to get that factual kind of information and not really listen through the grapevine. And when you hear something saying, "Hey, I heard from a friend of a friend of a friend who works at the CDC that this is basically the end of the world," take it with a grain of salt. Just remember where the information's coming from, and try and listen to the professionals eventually
And
again.
well, Rick McGuire, thanks so much for calming down New Yorkers today on the Sunday Pod. With me, Alex Garrett. We've been friends out for the last few years, actually, so it's been a great friendship, and thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, I'm Alex Garrett from Times Square. We'll talk to you soon. Stay safe out there.